everyone, we're Sahand and Akane, climbing together in Indianapolis in the United States. We both identify ourselves as an immigrant. Sahand is originally from Iran and I'm originally from Japan. The US is known as a melting pot, meaning that this country has historically accepted people from different cultures and ethnicities, and that's what has made this country so unique and powerful. That being said, living in a foreign country is not easy. We face language barriers, cultural differences, racism, and so many other major and minor hurdles in everyday life. But since we started climbing, we feel that our lives as immigrants have gotten so much better. We feel more content, connected, and accepted in society. In other words, climbing has enabled us to see the bright side of this country, which is full of people who embrace diversity and share the passion for this amazing sport. In this video, I like to share what the life of immigrants looks like with some of our own experiences, and how climbing has been helping our everyday life. Also, I like to talk about some unique realities that we face for being an immigrant and a climber, such as traveling to the middle of the countryside for outdoor climbing, where we barely have phone service and the community is less diverse compared to big cities. People immigrate for different reasons. I came to the US simply because I was interested in English, especially American English, as a high school student. I watched High School Musical, Disney movies, Twilight, and you name it if you're the same generation. And the pure curiosity in the language and American culture eventually got me immigrate to this country. However, Sahand wasn't the same. He is from Iran, a much more complicated country, and he came to the US for a better living. I came to the US more casually with excitement, but Sahand coming to the US was way more serious, and the amount of pressure and stress he was carrying was a lot. Other people choose to immigrate for better education, religious choice, money, or a better climate. Let's say my immigration was rather positive because I was simply interested in learning the language, knowing the outside world, and boosting my education and career experience. But living in the US, we've seen many immigrants who didn't have a choice but to immigrate. For example, in some traditions, parents send their kids to the US to accomplish something big. Some people may not be able to live in their own country because they don't have freedom in their political, religious, or sexual choices. Many people also come here to make money to support their families back in their countries. After meeting with these people, I finally realized how privileged I was because if my immigration didn't work out, I could simply go back to Japan and have a decent life. But even myself, who chose to immigrate for positive reasons, I faced so many difficulties as an immigrant. The first challenge was obviously the language. Even though I learned English when I was back in Japan, real-life English is of course much different. Every action I take, like making a phone call, ordering a food in a restaurant, or watching TV, required courage. Now I believe I'm much better and more confident, but in the past, it even made me think that I am less than others just because I'm not a native English speaker. Also, more recently, when COVID happened, Asian was suddenly the primary target of racism. I haven't been in danger or directly targeted, but I had a situation where I felt uncomfortable being an Asian. Sahand had a similar experience as a Middle Eastern as well. But all this happened outside climbing. Our regular climbing community is very diverse and people appreciate it, so we feel very comfortable belonging to it, which I'm gonna talk about later. Besides the language difference and racism, living in a foreign country is full of surprises and challenges. Even moving to a new city within your country is a new experience. Imagine starting a new life in a different culture, language, and system. For example, the kitchen looks different. No Japanese houses have this giant oven like the US, and the vegetables and fruits you can get in the grocery store are different. In Japan, we can go everywhere using public transportation, but in the US, you can't live without a car. Also, we don't tip in a restaurant in Japan, and in fact, if you force tipping, it's sometimes considered rude. But in the US, it's rude if you don't tip. These small differences in culture and society take time to get accustomed to. Finally, many immigrants face limitations in immigration status. If your working visa expires next year, for example, you're constantly worried if you're gonna be able to successfully renew your visa or your company will continue sponsoring your visa. For students, some people get only a single entry visa. That means you enter the US and you can't leave unless you finish your study. You can't go back to your country to see your family for Christmas or in case of a family emergency. Unless you're a permanent resident or naturalized citizen, you're constantly burdened with limited immigration status. So that's pretty much how Sahand and I live as immigrants. We both experienced language barrier, racism, limitations in immigration status. Now that we have been living in the US for some years, some of these limitations have been resolved or improved. But still, our lifestyle and culture are very different from typical Americans. But since we started climbing, our everyday life has changed. Of course, in a better way. Now, I like to talk about specifically how climbing has changed our lives. First and probably best of all, the community aspect of climbing has allowed us to get to know so many amazing people. Before we started climbing, we had only a few friends. We were new to the city and we're not an extrovert. We don't drink, we don't party, and we don't have cats or dogs. As a foreigner, it's also hard to get into the local community smoothly. Also, keeping friendships is hard in general when you're out of college. Unless there is something in common to bond, people just get so busy with their own lives. So we were kind of feeling lonely in a new city with limited connection with surrounding people. Then we started climbing. If you're a climber, you already know how it feels, but the community aspect of climbing is unbelievable. We started talking to people in the gym, seeing them regularly, and eventually going out to other gyms or crags together. We would never be able to connect to local people like this if we didn't climb. Seeing the same faces regularly is such a relief and keeps your life stable and healthy. Especially that we don't have families here in the US, it's so nice to have people we can count on when we have problems or need help. And climbing community is amazingly diverse, not only in terms of race, but in many other ways. Because of that, people appreciate differences and they respect each other. Although Asians and Middle Easterns are still a minority, we feel very much connected, accepted, and appreciated. We feel a sense of belonging, and we feel that we have something to give to the community as well. By seeing the diverse people, we also learn the unique cultures of others, what they think, how they live, what they struggle with, and what they enjoy. Through this community, we learn a lot about the country we are living in, the bright side of the country that we can't otherwise see on the news or by just walking on the street. Furthermore, the community and physical aspects of climbing relieve the stress and pressure we feel as immigrants. Communicating with people is an excellent distraction from reality. It's like after COVID and remote working, we finally realized how important chit-chatting was around the office between work. It gives a relaxing break between your constant work and life. Also, when we're climbing, we're so focused that we don't think about anything else. After climbing, we feel refreshed and positive about whatever hardship we're carrying. Speaking of physical aspect, we're more mindful about our bodies than before. We're more careful about what we eat, and we try to cook at home as much as possible so we know what we're consuming. We try to avoid artificial fats and sugar, processed food, and alcohol. We also try to increase our protein intake. Obviously, our health in better shape than before. Finally, this is not limited to being an immigrant, but climbing has brought a strong meaning and purpose to our everyday life. We have something we look forward to, work hard for, and eat healthy for. You set a goal like, I want to send a V7 next year, or 512D this season, or I want to win the next bouldering comp. To achieve the goal, we plan our training and schedule trip to perform. The whole process is an invaluable foundation to keep your life meaningful and exciting. Although climbing has drastically helped our life as an immigrant, there are still small, unique situations where we feel a little uncomfortable as a foreigner. First, for some reason, all the quality climbing crags are all in the countryside. Traveling there is not always an easy process for us. For example, we stop by a gas station and I see that we're the only foreigners in that gas station. I understand that this is the US and this is very much what I should expect, but since we're in a more diverse environment usually, I sometimes feel a little uncomfortable. Some areas have unique local English accents that we haven't heard before. In that case, making a reservation for a campground or ordering food in a restaurant is more challenging. Also, some of these places barely have phone service. Imagine you're in a foreign country in the middle of local forest without connection. It's not a usual situation, you get worried. Although we're already familiar with cracks that we go often, like Red River Gorge in Kentucky or Chattanooga in Tennessee, traveling to a new crack could be challenging depending on the situation. Secondly, it's a small thing, but our names are unique in the US. Sahand is a Persian name, and my name Akane is Japanese. And our names are not familiar to the American people. In climbing, you meet with new people every day in a gym or crack, which is wonderful, but introducing ourselves is a little hiccup. When I say my name is Akane, people usually go like, Akane? And I have to repeat it. Imagine doing this every time you meet someone new. At one point, I used Sarah as just one of my favorite Western names to make everything easy. But then some people knew me as Sarah and others knew me as Akane, and it just made a mess. Also, when people cheered me up like, come on Sarah, you got this, I didn't feel like Sarah at all myself. It was my Starbucks name after all. So I stopped using it and now I confidently go with Akane. To make things worse, Sahand and I are always together, so we usually have to introduce two foreign names at the same time. We feel so bad that our names are difficult for Americans, but we usually tell them that they can ask us again and any time to remember our names. In this video, I talked about the life of immigrants and how climbing has helped our lives. It's not only the physical sport aspect that's helped us, but also the community and foundation in life that climbing brings. I talked about how climbing helped us from the immigrant standpoint, but I'm sure everyone has a unique and special relationship with climbing from a different standpoint. Please feel free to share your experience in the comment, and we love to hear different voices. Thank you for watching. In our channel, we talk about various topics about climbing, from training to general topic like this one. So if you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel.